and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichten, and with me, as always, is Leo Sun. Leo, how you doing?
Good to be back, Ryan. I am doing all right. It's our last pod of the year, and it's episode 20, so it feels like it's a little bit of a milestone moment for us there. But yeah, man, I'm happy to be back. Just like the Timberwolves in last week, I've just barely survived my crazy end of the year. I escaped all my travel with just a minor cough now. So those of you listeners, I'm gonna try and mute myself for that. But I'm finally back home. I'm ready to make things right again. The Wolves are 0-3 when I was abroad. So if that's anything, once I came back, they're 3-0. So it feels like every week I'm gone from the pod, the Wolves have struggled. So I hope everyone in the Wolves fandom could rejoice that I don't have any travel plans in the near future that'll take me away from this. So I guess we're gonna finish the season 50-0 or whatever we have left. So
yeah, kind of reminds me of we had Travis on right after the apocalypse that was the Towns and the Knicks coming back, and after having him on earlier after those back-to-back Portland losses. So similar to him, where we have to cherry pick a good time to have him on, we'll have to lock you down and keep you in place at home.
Yes, sir. I'm here. I know I'm good to finish out the rest of this year. I can guarantee that. I'll probably be here to start the rest of the 2025 year as well too. So fingers crossed.
Well, I was gonna say the rest of this year in Central Time, we got 25 hours left of this year. So, and it'll be less when this comes out. So, that's good to hear about about 2025 as well. But yeah, we'll just hop right into it. Topic 1. The starting lineup continues to struggle. Pretty much almost every game, start of third quarter, the Wolves kind of dig themselves into a hole with the starting lineup that continues to be one of the big frustrating spots of this team, basically from the opening night of the season. So Leo, foul or foul, the starting lineup is the big issue the Wolves face as a team the remainder of the year.
I'm going to say foul on this, and I say it with a caveat because I'll start with this. I was reading NBA.com's John Schumann. He does these power rankings at the start of every week, and so he did this earlier today when we're recording this. He shared that the starting lineup of the Timberwolves have been outscored by 22 points in their 45 minutes during this last 3-0 winning streak. And it's now just they're only just a plus 1.6 per 100 possessions in nearly 400 minutes, so 379 total minutes. So that's not good, right? But the reason I say foul is that I don't think they're the biggest issue. Is I think that the starting lineup is very capable of playing the right way. They just have to. They're just like far and away. They have to consistently show that they are able to bend and be flexible to playing the right way. They're seeing that every night when Nasri comes in, Nickeil Alexander-Walker comes in, Donte DiVincenco comes in, and they're moving the ball. It's floating around. They're getting wide open looks. They're playing with pace. They're pushing and transition. And there's no way I don't think that a player like Anthony Edwards, for athletic as he is, and Julius Randle, as much of a point forward ability that he has, that they can't do that. Now, again, they're a long ways away from showing that, but I think not outside of Ant and Julius, they're kind of low-hanging fruit, but it's Mike and Jaden need to hit shots. They're shooting really, really poorly. I mean, Jaden has come on a little bit more lately, but even in the last game against the Spurs, he was horrendous shooting from perimeter at least. And, his confidence there, he's doing other stuff, but I mean, at the bare bones minimum offense, they have to hit their wide open shots. So I think that's the biggest thing. As I mentioned, Ant and Julius, they just have to commit to moving the ball. So to me, the biggest issue isn't actually the starting lineup. It's just that they have to learn to play a little bit more like the bench. Now, that might be a little bit of a prayer, a little bit of a hope and a prayer on my end, but I do think that they could solve it. I don't think the solution to it is just by changing the starting lineup and everything will be better. I think that could bleed into the bench. Say, you move a couple of those players to the bench. I mean, they'll continue to have those struggles in that community playing the right way. So for me, I say foul. Ryan, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to say how that it is the biggest issue that faces the team in the sense of, to me, it's like the big glaring thing that needs to get fixed and that will have to get fixed or probably will get fixed. I agree with you that they have too much talent in that lineup to have it be this bad. But I do just wonder, with Mike not really shooting it well, I don't know how much of that is just being off or whatever, or if it's this wrist injury that's bothering him. And there's just a lack of shooting across the lineup. Obviously, Rudy isn't a shooter, and then Jaden is up and down, and teams don't seem to respect his outside shot. And that probably, to a lesser extent, also applies to Julius Randle. who has shot the ball pretty well, but certainly teams are not treating him the same way as they would treat a different shooter like Naz Reid, for example. I don't know if like making a change in the starting lineup is the best. It's hard to like at this point disagree with maybe the starting lineup needs to change just because it's been so darn bad. But one thing that has to happen, and what has happened the past few games, is you got to play the five best guys at the end of the game. We can't. We're the starting unit has been bad enough that you can't have these games. I don't remember what exact I think the Golden State game last week was kind of like this, where like you just can't roll the lineup. Their five best lineup is clearly not the starters right now. Maybe that'll change. It's hard to see it changing, but right now their five best lineup just does not include those five guys. So when you get to the end of the games and it's close, roll with your best guys, and they've been doing that. Like Donte has closed the last couple games. Naz closed instead of Rudy. It's interesting that they never seem to pull Randall late in a game, for better or for worse, but it's been good to see them kind of go away from the starters. And one thing that has been good is they're kind of mixing and matching who plays with who. Like Randall's been fantastic with like more of the bench guys. Ant has played more with different units. So it's that part of it's been good, and that's been a huge reason why they're winning games again, is because that they're they're punting on the starting lineup quick. They're getting people in and out, and I just wonder why the ball movement is just so darn bad with that starting unit. Part of it is like the non-shooters, and this part of it is guys just kind of need to play better.
Yeah, I think if you had to put your coaching hat on, Ryan, if you were Chris Finch for the next game that they have against the Thunder, let's not even say against the Thunder, just whatever next game we say random opponent, we don't know who they're facing next game. How would you tweak the lineup, or would you tweak it at all? Like, I understand that your point saying that the closing is not always the same as the starting, but just for you, like, what change to starting five would you make, if at all?
I mean, I would play your best five. I would try to play the best five guys. I honestly don't know who that is right now, but I would probably look to move Jaden to the bench. He just, the shooting, the ball movement has not been there with him. I don't know. I'm not as concerned about, like, because to me, like, whether or not that is the five people that start, that 5-man lineup is going to play minutes together, because whether it's your best combined lineup, it's certainly the most talented lineup. Those are your five most talented guys, at least to put a legit lineup out there. So I don't know what I would do. It's a tough thing, but ultimately I think there's too many, like, moving Randall to the bench is like such a clear, like, bright signaling, like, move.
Yeah, lever to pull.
It's
Right.
just I know people hate this, but it's just you're gonna lose him. You're gonna lose him if you move him to the bench. To me,
Yeah.
the move is I mean, and he's been playing great, so this isn't even like a now discussion, because he's been one of their five best players in this stretch. But when he's not playing defense, like we saw earlier in the year, like closing lineups, just when I remember feeling this way kind of down the stretch of last season with Towns, and really with Gobert. There were games when it would, like, Towns needed to close, and there was games where Gobert needed to close, and obviously most of the games they needed them both. But I was like, this team is, last year I felt like this team is too good to cater to, like, to cater to anything more than just trying to win games. And I don't know if we're there yet with this team, and then I don't know, there's a half decent chance that Randall isn't on the team past the deadline, so you really don't know. But at a certain point, and seems like most fans are already here, like, we can't be worried about who's getting paid what. We can't worry about what agent has promised what, or what agent has expected something. We just gotta play our five best guys, and I think they've been doing that right now, because ultimately Randall has been one of their five best guys.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think for me, and then not to belabor this point, but I feel that Mike Conley needs to get right. I mean, he played 23 minutes against Spurs, 24 minutes against the Rockets, which was I would say it would be the lowest of each of the starting five had Jaden McDaniels not kind of taken himself out of the Rockets game with foul trouble. But that said, I mean, he's had dueling 1 for 5 field goal percentage games in the last 2 games, like 1 for 5 each game, 1 for 4 from three in each game. And again, we all love Mike. Look, I love Mike. I'd love for him to retire here, but so long as if it's his wrist or whatever the hell is going on with him, that needs to get fixed because he's getting picked on out there. I understand that he understands the team concepts to defense. He plays hard. There's certain things that he does well, but he's getting targeted out there. They're going at him on defense. He's too small. He's getting challenged on offensive rebounds. Those are in my notes against the Spurs games. And so if he's not hitting open shots, he's not also necessarily setting the table that well, considering how much Julius and Ant have the ball in their hands. And so what is he doing out there? I think that's what kind of befuddles me a little bit about, Rob Dillingham not getting more minutes. That's a whole can of worms that we don't have to get into right now because obviously Donte and Nikhil, they've been playing great, so it's not as big of an issue. But yeah, I think Mike is the thing that really stands out to me as a sore thumb. So again, if I had to pull any lever for the starting five or finishing five, I think Mike may be one of those. I understand that he does have value. Say if Ant's getting one of those hero ball moments or Julius getting a little bit too sticky with it, yeah, maybe having Mike out there to kind of lubricate the situation might be a little bit better. But yeah, I think there's some things to figure out, and I get why they should stick with it. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on Mike. It's been a weird season, been a tough season for him so far. I think the shooting will come around to a certain extent. I don't think it's going to be this all year. And I don't think the Wolves are as reliant on him as they were last year. Obviously, there's going to be stretches where they need his playmaking, they need the ball movement, as their late game offense has clearly been up and down this year. But with the play of Donte, and we'll talk about that later, that helps fill that role a lot, especially when he's playmaking and not turning the ball over. I don't know if, like you said, kind of been lesser defensive. The shot is whatever. The shot for any player is going to come and go, but the defenses, the turnovers have been up. The numbers with Gobert pick and roll, which was one of their best actions last year, has not been there. Maybe they need to. It'd be interesting to see. I would. In 2 weeks or next week, excuse me, they play a back-to-back home against the Clippers and then on the road against the Pelicans. To me, that's a spot to give Mike a rest, one or both of those games, and to play Rob some minutes. New Orleans would be a good opportunity, assuming their guys are still out. You should be able to beat them, even with playing. If Rob is considered a lesser player or a negative player, you should be able to win that game easily even with playing Rob plenty of minutes. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Mike continues. I don't think he's washed. Do you agree with that? I think some of that's been talked about. He's not going to give you what he gave you last year, but wash is too far.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, a lot of these things that we're seeing, I mean, obviously the shooting is not there from perimeter, but most of his shots are coming up short. You also look, I think the biggest indicator to me, and again, I'm far from, NBA, trainer or anything like that, but a lot of his floaters are just either strong or he's strong arming him or short arming his floaters. And that is his bread and butter move. And so if he's not hitting those shots, and to me that indicates that physically something's still not right. And maybe the only way through it is for him to get more reps and kind of get his wrist and his arm back into the shape that it needs to be. And so maybe he has to just kind of keep pushing through this. But yeah, it very clearly signals to me that it's a physical issue with them. It's not a mental. It's not that his legs aren't under him. It's definitely, I think, one specific issue. And to me, I think it's a wrist. So I don't think he's washed. I think his wrist is washed right now, but I would think that comes back.
Yeah. The underlying numbers with him on the court are still pretty good. Even when he was playing really bad, it was never as bad as it looked. So, but I think it's important to keep starting him, obviously, and then he's down closer to mid-20s minutes than in the 30s. So that was always a concern last year. How many minutes they're lightening his minute load, whether that's given his play or just they're doing it on purpose. I think that's a key for Mike. But we can head into our topic number 2. The offense still up and down. It's currently 21st on the season, 13th in the last 3 games during this win streak. So how or foul, the offense is starting to turn the corner this season.
I'm saying how. I think the offense is turning a corner, but I think for half the team, aka the bench, it's so stark when you see it now. At first, it was kind of like, okay, well, I think was it Jace or Chris Hine that was talking on social media about how the lineup that basketball lovers enjoy or
That'd
whatever.
be Jace's
Right,
copyright.
right. So we're talking about that Nikhil, that Donte, that Naz group, and so at first we kind of laughed about it, but I think we're really seeing honestly how much of a different. It looks like a different team when they're out there playing. And I think they've really committed and understood to it, and they're generating great looks. And so I don't think it's a flash in the pan. You think about the game against the Spurs. I mean, the team as a whole shot 11 for 44 from three against the Spurs, right? Yet they still scored 112 points. It's because they're generating good looks and the bench itself has hit a combined 23 pointers between the last two games. And so that's half, if not more, of the threes that the entire team has hit. And the reason why isn't because they're just jacking up bad shots. I mean, I think each game there's been one or two Donte 3-pointers that's like, all right, man, you took like one dribble in from the logo and launched a three when you really didn't need to. But aside from that, I mean, he's getting good looks. And Nikhil, I mean, he hasn't been hitting a ton of threes, but he's still hitting them at a good rate out there. And Naz, Naz kind of been in and out as well too. He's had some hot stretch. He's gotten really cold. Sometimes I think in the Spurs game he was really cold. He was really frustrated, and he really turned it on late as well too. So I think the offense has really turned a corner with them. That makes me feel great because again, I'm trying to get the Timberwolves offensive rating up to top 10. All right. That's my goal for this season. And I think that they're getting there. I do think that, as we mentioned in the last subject, that I think that the starters really need to watch and learn like, this is how this team needs to play basketball now. Whether or not they'll get there, I don't know. But do you feel that the offense is starting to turn a corner, Ryan?
I do, in the extent of I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was early in the year. I think, like you said, the bench has been playing too well. Donte and Nas and all these guys have been playing much better than they were earlier in the year. But so I'm going to say how overall that they are turning the corner. That I mean, it looks as good or as bad as it was last year. I don't think they'll continue to be like bottom 10 in the league. But as far as like where it needs to be, which is probably like you said closer to top 10, they still got a good ways to go. And honestly, the biggest thing, and this is kind of a nice segue into our next topic, is Ant needs to be a big reason why the offense turns around, because he just hasn't been very good, honestly, over the past month or so. I think during the win streak, this 3-game win streak, he's played well. Like I wouldn't say he's played poorly, but just like the scoring punch just has not been there. He's had one game over the past since mid-November, with 30 points. Like that's not like who he was last year. That's not who he's been for a long time. And so I'm just kind of wondering when he is going to be able to get back to that. So I guess topic 3, Howler foul. It's only a matter of time before Ant starts to scoring punches again.
I'm going with Hal on this as well too. I think he'll get loose. He's way too talented, and we saw the flashes early in the season of him just being able to go nuclear on offense. I think the more his teammates are forcing defenses to respect them, excuse me, the easier it'll get. So so long as Mike and Jaden aren't hitting shots, or Julius is not kind of shooting the ball when he's open, and that Rudy's not rolling hard, or just not trusting him, then I think Ant will continue to struggle. But I do think that they're learning. Ant is hitting Rudy a little bit earlier in the short roll now, and Julius is making a note to push the ball up after he gets a rebound, a little bit more. He is attacking earlier. I mean, he's still pounding the ball, but I feel like eye test wise, I've seen him do a little bit less of like, okay, well, let me get the ball at the top, dribble back, take a couple steps, and then go in. Like he's kind of catching and going. I think that's big. And so the more that they continue to gel, I think it's almost maybe intentional that Ant is kind of like biding his time right now. He wants to let the team go. He wants to see the rest of his teammates thrive. And once that's ready, I mean, we've seen Ant flip that switch. And so maybe it needs to come a little bit more organically, other than him coming into a game with a preconceived notion of, all right, well, let me try and get my teammates the opportunity to score, and then I'll hop in when I need to. Like maybe he needs to mix that in a little bit more, but I think it'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, Howler foul on him turning a corner. I think he's going to, at some point in the season, he's going to have like just a oh my god stretch where he's scoring in bunches. But like right now, why isn't he doing that? To me, it's like it's a mix of a lot of things. Some of it is the lack of shooting on the court with him. A lot of his minutes are with Rudy or with Jaden and and Julius where the spacing just isn't there, and then teams are just loading up on him. Teams are just selling out to take away his shots, and whatever like the Wolves get on the back end, the teams are just living with it. And so that requires Ant to get off the ball, and it's not always coming back to him. Or like at the end of the Dallas game, there's a couple possessions where he just dribbled. He does it like he does this thing where when he sees the double, he often like wants to attack it and get around it, and he just plays right into the defense's hand. And I just really wish that he had more of the what the offense more had was him finding Rudy on the short roll. Kind of talked about it with Jack in the last pod where I know like what does the offense need to do? Get the ball to Rudy more sounds like an insane thing, but like every time Rudy gets the ball on the short roll, he makes the right pass. Like there's so few times where they hit him there and he just like throws up one of those memeable shots that goes around the internet to make fun of Rudy. Those are not where those shots happen. Those shots happen when he gets the ball like off an offensive rebound. But like in the short roll, he just makes good plays. And I just think that's like something they need to find Rudy on more consistently, because that'll like one of the reasons Ant was exploding early in the year is because teams were going under on screens and Ant was just walking into open threes. And so if they can find Rudy on the short roll, more of those shots would open up. But then like the third thing overall with Ant is there's something else not going on, but like he's just not playing well. I think that's fair to say. Like he's just not playing. Well, it's not that he's not playing well. He's just not playing as well as he could, and the scoring is suffering. And some of these games it has cost them, and then there's other games against San Antonio where it hasn't cost them his lack of scoring. But yeah, I'm looking forward to those stretches when he is just scoring in bunches, scoring 30 plus a night. Because I think that's when the Wolves and the offense are really going to start ripping off games.
Yeah, that's who he is, right? In his DNA, he's a scorer. And as much as he's been working on other things like his passing and his defense, his rebounding, like that's great and all. We need to continue seeing that from him. But we can't take him away. We can't make him what he isn't, which is a facilitator or whatever, what have you, or like kind of picks his spots. Because we saw that in that Spurs game. There were a number of plays, especially one at the very end where he was, I think the Wolves were up 2 and he could have made it 4, but he was wide open for like a 6-foot like little floater, and he short armed that so bad, and then he on the offensive rebound time just kind of smacked it out of bounds. And that to me was an indictment on how out of rhythm he was in that game offensively, that normally Ant could make that shot in his sleep. And the fact that he missed out was because he was so cold and he just kind of wasn't playing like himself. But at the same time, I'll give him his credit because he has made key plays outside of scoring as well too, right? Like he had a huge block. I forget if it was on Vassell or Sohan or whatever, where he just went up and just swatted that. That was a big momentum play for them. He had 8 rebounds, which was great. He still had 4 assists. He only turned the ball over twice in that Spurs game, so he still had big moments in it. So yeah, I think it'll come together for him. He's not the top of my worries, especially his scoring.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the scoring will come, and I think like the biggest thing is like so many other shooters have been shooting under their numbers, and I just wonder how much that will help. Yeah, I think that's a good spot to move on to our next topic. The Wolves have won 3 straight. They've all been very close games. They won by 6 on Christmas against Dallas. That was a 2-point game late, and then won by a single point against Houston and just 2 points against the Spurs. So howl or foul, the Wolves have started to fix some of their issues in clutch games.
I'm going to cite back to this. So first I'll say I'm a howl on the Wolves starting to play better in clutch games. And so I'm going to cite back to Josh Schumann's article in the Power Rankings. He noted that the Wolves are second in clutch games played this season. They played 20. In those 20 games, they're 10 and 10. Now, I don't know if you think that's good or bad. I mean, 500, is that really what we expect from this team? But that said, I think them playing that amount of clutch games will pay dividends in the postseason. There is going to be a lot of games. There's going to be grindouts to come down to it. And I think Wolves getting more reps in those situations are only going to be good. only going to create confidence. Like, yo, we've been here before. We've played in a lot of close games all season. We can do it now. Sometimes Ants bailed them out. Whether it was in the Dallas game where he hit, those two big shots, and in the Houston game, he takes that big hero ball 3-pointer that goes in. And sometimes it's their defense that bails them out. Like against Houston, they really clamped down that fourth quarter. Against the Spurs, again, they weren't scoring a ton in the last couple minutes, but they hunkered down on defense. And so I think that the Wolves are a very complex team. And because that they're such a complex team, I think it's created a lot of complex results, where meaning that they can win and lose in so many different fashions right now. So I think overall, how on them being able, them starting to play better in clutch games. And again, I think long term, it's going to have a lot of benefits.
Yeah, I mostly agree with you. I'm only going to go foul because I just thought the Christmas game was such a debacle offensively late in the game that I gotta talk about it just a little bit, because that was like the most classic example of where the Wolves have failed so far this year on offense, where the ball just sticks. And we just talked about Ant. I think he's honestly one of the biggest issues for it. There's been a lot of just like hero ball shots or whatever. I know late in the third quarter when the Wolves were up by 20 something points, he was kind of a big reason why the offense started to slip. But yeah, I'm glad I was just like, especially on Christmas, please just don't ruin my Christmas, man. If they would have lost the game, if Luka was playing the whole night, whatever, but like, just don't ruin my Christmas. They didn't. And one of the bright spots was the last couple possessions when they really needed a bucket. Both times Anthony Edwards came with a good shot in the paint to seal the game. And so that was a good sign. I do kind of think they are starting to play better in clutch games. You mentioned them being 10-10, and I do think in the end, the NBA, maybe clutch games are kind of winnable. But I know, like, if you think about like other sports like baseball or football, clutch games are pretty much a coin flip.
Right.
Or at the very least, you're gonna win them at the same rate you're gonna win all your other games. You're not there. It's not winning close games is as much a skill as it is luck. It seems weird, and it's not totally that, but I would, maybe a better phrase would be, we overrate the ability of good teams to win clutch games. If a game gets down late, what good teams do is they avoid close games. They blow people out. And I guess the games that are clutch are ones that a lesser team would have gotten blown out. But so, I mean, if they're 10-10, that, to be honest, they'll probably, if they continue to be 500 in clutch games, they're gonna, given that they haven't, the Knicks game is the only game where like they had no shot of winning it late. So if they keep going 500 in close games, they're probably gonna win a bunch of games, because they're gonna have plenty of games where it isn't close because they're up by a bunch.
Yeah, we'll talk about the schedule probably a little bit later here in the pod. But, the Wolves have played a pretty tough schedule so far. And I understand it's a West. It's always going to be tough for the most part. But yeah, I mean, they've played 31 games so far. So if 20 of their games have ended in clutch games, that means 65% of their games have been clutch games. And that's, as you mentioned, it's a product of the fact that they're not doing their work early enough. And I think we expected that after the trade, that, with the new players and them trying to adjust, that it's going to take some time. And so, it's hard to ask for more from them out of 10-10 in clutch games, especially given how many they've played. So, we'll see what happens. I think, they'll have two tough opponents coming up, but hopefully it'll pay dividends.
Yep, exactly. That'll move us on to our next block here. Apex Alpha, who was the top dog for the Wolves this week. To me, it's a pretty obvious candidate. Donte DiVincenco has arrived. Probably his first really great stretch as a Timberwolf. He scored 22 points on 6 of 10 shooting from 3 against Houston. Was a big part of why they won that game. And then scored 26 points against San Antonio. Probably was their best player all night. Hit half of his threes. And in the last 6 games, he is 48.9% from 3. And to me, that the shot that looked so ugly early in the year is all the way back now. And I think we're going to finally get the Donte DiVincenco we all expected when they trade for him. But yeah, I was never worried that he was going to bounce back. But some of the frustrating stuff with Donte was like the drives into the paint that almost always turn into turnovers, and lately those have been either non-existent or been turned into assists. So it's been really good to see Donte DiVincenzo bounce back from a tough start to the season.
Yeah, it's the same for me. My Apex Alpha of the Week is also Donte DiVincenzo. It would be disingenuous to have anyone else other than him here. He's been the main reason the Wolves have pulled out, these games recently. He's been playing 34 minutes and 32 minutes in his last two games. And we recall, I mentioned in one of our pods a couple weeks ago about how in the locker room I overheard some players talking about their minutes and saying that's hard to get in a rhythm. They're not getting minutes. And, Donte DiVincenzo, he's played the most minutes of the entire season in these last two games. And the results came with it. Coach Finch talked about it in the post game yesterday as well, too, is that Donte has played for Tibbs, and so he knows that he doesn't get tired playing all these minutes. And so I think Finch is starting to learn that, hey, I can lean on him a little bit more. And is that conveniently coming when Mike Conley's been struggling? Maybe it's probably a little bit of both, but I think if Donte continues to assert himself like this, it's going to open up a world of possibility for the Wolves. And so Donte was also asked about his transition into the Wolves. I think it was in the post game or maybe during practice media availability today, where he talks about it's taken some time for him to feel like it's been home here. His players, his fellow teammates, and his coaches have told him, hey, like be yourself. This is your home. But even for him, he said it took a minute for him to tell himself that this is his new home, and it was a really quick transition for him. Coming right before training camp, and so that said, welcome home, Big Ragu. If Donte is ready to make this place his home and he plays like this, then we all better send him some housewarming gifts.
Yeah, thinking about kind of the Mike Conley discussion, I do wonder how much Donte is going to start playing down the stretch if Mike doesn't turn around. There certainly be games where they need like a pure point guard. We've already seen that in plenty of games, but like especially you mentioned his minutes. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Donte to play 30-something minutes a night especially if like he can play a little bit of point guard. That's been kind of a thing all year. I think it's going to be can they find some other point guard minutes, especially at this point Dillingham has a hurt ankle. I don't know how much that's affecting their decision to put him on the bench. It has to be playing some part, but to me, it's very clear they're very hesitant to play Rob Dillingham in any meaningful minutes against any tough opponent. So that is what it is. Maybe a discussion for another time of the the ramifications of that. But I think Donte to me is like one of their five best players. That maybe, and certainly in games like the last one against San Antonio, he's even better than that. So I think finding him as many minutes as he can, especially with Mike struggling, will be a big thing.
Yeah, I think him and Nikhil have really, alternated, that role of like super sub coming off the bench and bailing the Wolves out, not just with their defense, but also their shot making. I mean, there's so many notes that I had from that Spurs game where Donte made big play after big play, especially late. I mean, we know how great he was shooting the ball all night, but there's one play in particular. I think Ant missed a three or someone missed a shot. Donte came flying in and just kind of tapped that ball. That allowed Rudy to grab that offensive rebound and put it back in, or I think he got fouled and made two free throws. And then there's also another play shortly after where Donte launched, a pretty deep three catch and shoot that just barely missed. And how many times has that happened in the Wolves where they miss a three and they're not getting back because the defender leaked out, right? Well, you have the biggest player in the game that was contesting that shot or leaked out after that shot, and Victor Wembanyama, who was leaking out, and Donte full sprint after he misses that three without hesitation, deflects I think it was Chris Paul through an outlet to Wemby that was a guaranteed two, and Donte was just short of diving out of bounds just to kind of knock that out of bounds and to save it. And so he's made these huge plays on both ends. So I think it's easy to talk about his shooting. And yes, it's unlocking so much, but even on the defensive end, I mean, he's a hustle player. He talked about it post game in the media availability, the presser, about how that's the kind of player he's always been known for, is making those small little plays. And to have a player like him, to have a player like Nikhil who do and star in those stars in their roles, that's going to be huge, especially once Ant starts figuring it out and hopefully Julius gets a little bit more comfortable and everything kind of squares away. I think it'll really start to highlight that.
Yep, exactly. From there, we'll move on to our next segment, Prey of the Week, who did the Wolves make their prey this week? And I'm going to go with our own heart rates, Wolves fans' heart rates. 3 close wins, all of them right down to the end. That we talked about the Christmas game, just an insane kind of one of those. It can never be easy, even with it's like if Kyrie Irving misses a couple of those tough shots early in the fourth quarter, maybe we don't need any late game magic. And then against Houston in a game that was all but dead, they come back from 16 down with less than 5 minutes to go to win that one. Certainly found a nice lineup there at the end of the game, and then beat a Spurs team. That was just a normal close game. Still some. I mean, that the Wemby is just insane. I saw a good funny tweet that was just like, Wemby is global warming. We all see it coming. We all know it's a real big problem. But like for now, we're just like, wow, interesting. We're just enjoying our 70-degree days in December or whatever it was. Which that's what it makes me feel like, especially in the Western Conference. Like that guy is going to be like even just getting one like all-star, like a solid player or a solid like that level player. The dunk he had late where he just like spins and dunks it from what felt like the free throw line. I still kind of feel like they're not using him right in a certain sense, but to go back to what I was the prey of the week, yeah, our heart rates really wouldn't let us have an easy one there.
Yeah, I 100% feel you on that. I mean, on the topic of our heart rates, I mean, this is just kind of who the Wolves are, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's so easy for me to go back and think about. I think the first game that I felt this way was that Denver game where we came back from, was it 20 points or whatever in the fourth quarter, came all the way back to beat them late. And I remember my wife was looking at me just like, are you okay? And I was like, no, I don't think so. Like, I don't think this is healthy for me to be like so all in. I'm like, oh, this is over. I can't believe it. And then, they just turn it around. And then again, there was that game against the Kings where, they go to overtime and Ant hits these crazy shots and wins. Or even the Julius Randle game winner against the Suns where it's like, oh my God, like I can't with this team. And so I feel that with you. I got to shout out my brother on this one. He gifted me some Timberwolves branded sandals, these slides. And it was cute. He knows I like the Wolves. He probably found the first thing that he saw in the Timberwolves store that was, affordable. And he got me those. I was like, all right, whatever. So I put them on during the Mavs game. And the Wolves obviously pulled that out late. And I was like, you know what? These are my like magic sandals from now on. And so as they were playing the Houston Rockets, days later, I was like, I'm going to wear these sandals. It's going to be great. And then as things were going haywire in the fourth quarter, I was like, return these sandals. Like, I don't want them. He's like, no, man, you got to believe. You got to believe. And, obviously we know how that game ended. And I like took those sandals off immediately after the game. I was like, I need to preserve these for every game moving forward. I'm not going to wear these when they're not game days anymore from now on. So they're 3-0 in me wearing the sandals or the slides right now. So, but yeah,
little Christmas magic there.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, my prey of the week, changing gears a little bit here, is Adam Silver, our old commissioner of the NBA. He is my prey of the week because if those of you who didn't see, Ant was fined $100,000. That's US dollars for, as they quote said, history of using profane language during media interviews. And it came after, I believe it was the Rockets game where Gilbert Arenas, he said, Gilbert Arenas says, like, I don't do overtime. So I said, F it, And it's just interesting because Ant is we're only what, like a third of the way into the season now. And Ant's up to $210, $210,000 in fines so far. The problem is that everyone knows it, and Adam Silver knows it as well too, that Ant is clearly going to be the face of the league. And Slender Man, who's in charge, he's stopped trying to change who he is. I'll never forget, after the Warriors game that attended in person in the conference in the locker room, Ant was just kind of going off on a tirade about how the NBA is trying to change who he is, and that they don't want him to curse, and this, that, and the other. And I get it. This is a family league. This is a family product. It's on national TV. I get that, but this is 2024. Okay, I'm sorry, but kids are hearing their favorite athletes and their favorite streamers use swear words. Okay, so I think it's time we kind of grow up from that. And Adam Silver needs to kind of stop with this. Oh well, let's find him for he flipped off someone in the crowd, or he said, okay, I understand why he's doing that, but if Ant's the face of the league, you gotta, like, if you want the beautiful Ant moments of him dancing while being interviewed, or that childish joy that he plays with, then stop with these fines. So Adam Silver could do all that he wants, but he's got to know that it's time for a change. That he can't just keep trying to control and change who Ant is.
Yeah, I'm kind of two minds of it. I think finding people, to me, it's one thing when it's on national TV and he's doing a post game interview on the court and it's live. That I like you can't say the F word there. If it's a different word, if you're saying shit, like okay, maybe we can. But like ultimately, like, you got to be able to control yourself a little bit there. But I'm also it does seem a little silly. The fine he got for criticizing the officials, that was on him.
Yeah.
I have a hard time, given what the specifics of what he said. I have a hard time kind of saying anything other than he knew what was coming there, and honestly, it could have been worse for him there. So, but like the amount, the 100K is kind of crazy, and what frustrates me is like they take the clips of him, they bleep it, but like they take the clips of him sharing and like show it and put it all over their social media. So it's like, which is it? Like, are you promoting him, or do you want to get rid of the F bomb? So yeah, it's a tough situation, but ultimately the biggest thing he can do is just stop. Just stop swearing. Like, I did find, you mentioned the that specific locker room in Golden State. There's a piece up on SB Nation about Ant swearing, and a lot of the tweets were Dane's tweets, and I was like, I saw you in the background of one of Dane's tweets. I was in the article. I was like, hey, there's Leo. There he is.
Yeah, it's it is what it is. Like, I'm not expecting it to change anytime soon, and I get it. The NBA's product, but yeah, it's just I wish it wasn't just such a big thing. Like, I hope that someone's from the front office is helping out with this or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I would hate to lose on these pure Ant moments in the future. So, but yeah, I digress. This is not a hill I'll die on. So.
Yeah. Ultimately, I did find funny like the one with the officials. He was very quick to point out like it wasn't the female ref that I didn't have a problem with her. It was the two male refs. Those guys stink. It's like
See, he's learning. He's learning, right? I mean, from send the video to it's not the female ref. Ant is learning. Okay, so slowly, baby steps for him.
Yeah, I honestly believe it wasn't even a gendered thing. He just had a problem with, like, it was just like that was the
Too
first thing.
specific.
It was the first thing he could think of to designate which officials he had a problem with. But last thing before we head to two words here, 2024 year in review. So I kind of put together what has all happened in the last calendar year, just to kind of showcase like how much stuff can change in just a year, especially like when the Wolves are losing or when it feels like they can't turn it around. A lot can change fast. So a year ago at this time, the Wolves were first in the Western Conference with the 24-7 record. That November was basically the best regular season month in the history of the team. On January 22nd, Cat had the 62 in that loss to Charlotte, where somehow, I don't need to go on another Cat rant, somehow Cat got blamed in a game in which he scored 62.
He was fouled.
And that was bad. But like no one blamed Ant, who I thought was like an abomination in that game, with how bad he played, like was clearly like not involved in the game, but in just a classic, Cat was the one getting the blame for everyone else playing poorly. I guess we don't have that any problem anymore. March 7th, Cat got announced as tearing his meniscus and then didn't come back until the 81st game of the year, second to last game. That same day, Ant had that insane game in Indiana, scoring 40-plus points, culminating with a block to seal the game in which he hit his head on the backboard. March 18th, he had that dunk over John Collins, probably the best of his career, and the best of that season. April 14th, Wolves got blown out by Phoenix for the third time in that year. It was the final game of the regular season. The vibes were not great. Probably the worst of the entire season, just for them to sweep the Suns in. Just one of my best Wolves memories. Second to only them in May, beating the Nuggets in Game 7, culminating in that in that Game 7 win, where they come back from 20 down, and then they lose to the Mavericks in 5 later that month. In June 26th, they traded for Rob Dillingham, trading a pick and a swap. September 27th, Cat was traded right before training camp. November 27th, they start the season 8-10 with a disappointing loss to the Kings. After that, they won 6 of 7 before on December 19th, Cat kicked their ass. And then they have now won 3 in a row, sitting at 17-14, 8th in the Western Conference. So with all that, what was the most, what stood out the most? I wrote down a few things for myself. First, I remember that Indiana game was the same day as Cat getting announced as tearing meniscus. In my head, those were like 2 different days. The terrible vibes after that Phoenix game to close out the regular season. People thought that the thing was over. And then just me selfishly, I was at game 3 and 4 in Denver. And I was at the games 3 and 4 in Phoenix and game 7 in Denver. Honestly, the best sports memory, best professional memory of my life. After game 4, I took a red eye back because the next day was my son's first birthday. So that was spending my son's first birthday on no sleep and basically taking naps with him as the day went along was fantastic. And then game
Dad
7.
of the year.
Yeah,
right,
I don't know
there.
about that, but game 7 is obviously just insane. Just crazy game. I honestly in the offseason might have to just do a whole pod on that game. And then the Cat trade just being right before the season is also another thing. Like, I don't think, even if you don't like the trade or you don't like the return, Randall, blah blah blah, I don't think there was them trading him that close to season was always going to cause issues early on in the year. So that's what stood out to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to go back to some of your moments, and those are great for sharing. I think it's funny that you talked about, your son's first birthday, because I mean, I guess we could chalk you up as the Timberwolves Dads Club, right? I mean, everyone who just has new kids and everything like that. So I mean, you're in the
I
lead
did
for me too.
I did enjoy last season talking to Nikhil as his son was born in the locker room about just being my son's like a year older than his, but just talking to him about being a dad and the cliches and the the truth behind the cliches was great. But yeah,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
No. Yeah, I asked Julius about that too, and I think it was a Sacramento game, or yeah, it was a Sacramento game. I think where I asked him like, "Oh, how do you feel joining the new dads club now?" Because he announced he's having his third child as a baby girl. So, but anyways, yeah, I mean, I wish I could say I could beat you with the game 3 and 4 in Phoenix and game 7 in Denver, but I was at the most important game of the season, which was game 5 against Dallas at home. So in your face, Ryan. So, no, but yeah, I think when you talk about the Cat trade right before the season, that's like if you're watching a TV show, it's this season finale, and then it's like that last cliffhanger. It's like as it comes in, like Cat walks into like the coffee house that all the main characters hang out, and he goes like, "Hey guys, I'm moving," and everyone's like, "Huh?" And then they cut it, and that's like the end of the season, right? It's like that's what it felt like. It's like you knew that something was gonna go awry in this new season. So, but yeah, for me, I mean, I think overall what stood out to me, I think was a general vibe. Uh, that the first half of the 2024 was the Wolves were undeniably one of the best teams in the NBA. It was hard to believe that as a Wolves fan because we've only felt that twice ever. 2024 and 20 years ago, 2004, where we were the number one or one of the number one teams in the entire league and number one team in the West for the majority of the season, and we were just like bludgeoning teams with our defense. It was consistent all year. And, I remember telling my wife and my friends, my coworkers, they're like, "Oh, well, Wolves are playing really good." It's like, "Yeah, we'll see. I was so used to pumping the brakes. Like, I don't know. But they really proved it. And so just, I think that feeling of belief, instilling that back in me now, when I was a teenager, I believed in. Now I'm in my, late 30s now where all of a sudden I'm believing it again. And so I think aside from all the postseason victories that you kind of talked about, the overtime victory against Boston, I think it was in November. I was on my honeymoon in Japan. It was unforgettable. I was like on top of the Shibuya Sky Tower. I was like, hundreds of feet in the air. And I think when Ant took over and it was going crazy, like everyone in the gift shop was like, "What's wrong with this guy?" Because I'm like watching the game from my phone and I'm
Mhm.
just like yelling and jumping around. I gave my wife like my credit card. And I was like, buy whatever you want. Like, just let me watch this real quick. And it was such a crazy game. I'll never forget that. It was insane. And then I think secondly, it was just a Cat silencing his doubters, especially in the postseason, like fresh off a knee surgery. Like on the other end, we see Joel Embiid, who's, was the reigning MVP at the time, who's struggling to even like get up and down the court with a similar injury. And I know that, bodies, respond differently to that, but Cat was out there and he was one of the best players, if not the best player in that Sun series. And he was doing a hell of a job in that Nugget series as well, too. I think he finally was getting that respect. And to me, that was so cathartic for him to get that in
Mm-hmm.
a Wolves jersey. Imagine we didn't get that and then Cat gets traded to New York anyways. Now he's doing well. They're like, oh, now Cat's like really silencing the doubters. And we never got that, but we did get that last year. So that was really important to me. So, but yeah, I think lastly, I mean, losing Cat come, what was it, September 27th? I mean, that was the reality check that I think a lot of us Wolves fans who've, so used to, hopelessness and whatever, that was kind of the reality check that we expected to be around the corner. It was like kind of that sledgehammer to the heart where, it just felt like, oh, it was too good for this to last more than a season type of thing. And it sucks because, I mean, who knows, maybe this season will still be salvaged, but yeah, I mean, I think that said, we still have, as they say, employ rocking the divine number 5 still on our team, and that alone is reason for optimism. So I'm not like out on that. I think the Wolves are winning games. They're playing meaningful basketball, and that's only happened like I would say maybe 25-30% of our franchise's existence. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's hard to complain about that. So it's been such a whirlwind. I mean, even this season in itself has been like a whirlwind. But I mean, you combine that
Yep.
with everything that happened the first 7-8 months, it's been pretty crazy.
Yep. And if you think about 2 years ago, they had one of the worst wins, or one of the worst losses I've ever seen as a Wolves fan. That loss to Detroit on New Year's Eve was just like, that was like the lowest moment of holy crap. They traded everything for Gobert. This is
Right.
not working. I'm looking up the schedule. What that dropped their record to? They dropped to 16-21 after that. Like it just felt over.
Yeah.
They won 6 out of 7 after that, and kind of played 500 ball the rest of the way to make the playoffs. But so much can change. So for better or for worse, hopefully better. We'll see where it goes. But we'll move on to our 2 words. I can start here. 2 words. I'm going to steal a phrase from Kyle Tigey. I'm going to say long way, as in we've come a long way. That's what he was tweeting out all last year when they were breaking Wolves records, or halfway through the year outpacing Wolves wins. But saw something that I tweeted out. If you saw it, Automatic on Twitter tweeted out every team to win down 17 plus with 6. When they're down 17 or more points with 6:30 or left since 2006. Who is the Atlanta came back against Chicago, which is what happened. And an interesting game that was in there was a 2020 Wolves loss to the Sacramento Kings. And that just kind of gave me a thought of just remembering how that was really like the low point in like the Towns era, or really the Wiggins era Wolves. So in the span of 2 minutes and 31 seconds, they blew a 17-point lead. I'm sure your Kings buddies were all over you after that game. It was their 11th loss, or their 10th loss in a streak that eventually got to 14. They had 2 double-digit losing streaks that season, and it was just like, I just remember thinking, where was this team going? 9 days later, they traded Robert Covington, and 10 days later, they traded, 10 days after the trade, so 1 day after Covington, they traded Wiggins, and they traded Gorgie. They just blew up the whole damn thing, which was probably the best thing to do. For Covington, they got Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt, Juancho Hernangomez, and a first-round pick. For Wiggins, they got D'Lo and sent out a pick that eventually became Jonathan Kuminga. But all of those players played a huge role. I guess Juancho eventually got traded for Pat Bev. So all of those players played a huge role in them making the playoffs and eventually losing to Memphis. And then they traded D'Lo for Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. The pick that they got for Covington, they traded back, but it became Jaden McDaniels. And then they got Rudy Gobert with all the rest of those players. So half of the Wolves' main 8 guys were basically in a trade tree from that time. And so it just makes me think of, like, it's been that was a very low point in this franchise's history. Obviously, they've had worse seasons than that. Sad to say, but it's crazy to think how far this whole thing has come since that low point.
Yeah, I love that because I'm always the type of person, especially in my age now, where I like to zoom out a lot and kind of take a look at, all right, well, let's put some perspective to this. Like, where were we, right, 4 years ago, and what has changed, and every little thing that seemed like inconsequential, like, okay, well, we got Patrick Beverly, like, for what? Like, what's he gonna do here? And it was like a huge thing, and it helped turn to even a bigger thing with like Rudy Gobert. It's like every little thing has like is a ripple effect that goes down, creates a huge current later on. So I like that perspective that you have, and we have come a long way. I think the optimistic way of thinking about it is that we still have a long way to go from here. We can look back at this as like, oh, well, we thought we made these huge strides from 2020 to 2024, but what about from now to 2028 when De'Aaron Fox and Anthony Edwards are leading the Minnesota Timberwolves their second straight NBA Finals? Like, who knows what could happen between now and
Dude,
then? So
your Kings are in a bad
yeah, yo,
spot.
yo, 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 yo,
Holy
yo, yo,
cow.
yo. We're like my king. I don't know if I would say my kings, but yes, my hometown kings. Yes, are they're in a bit of a place right now. So again, I apologize to all my any Kings fans that may be listening to this. I'm sure you guys will figure it out with your owner. Maybe I don't know, but that said,
I
change a
just
little bit of
call them
topic.
your Kings because you do that same little correction every single time, and it's funny.
Oh my gosh, freaking kings. No, well, my two dog, my two dog, my two words, my two words is underdog time. We've had a tough schedule so far, and we still, I think we're all the way. It's all the way been ramping up to this. We're playing the Thunder and the Celtics. We have them on deck this week, and I think we'll definitely be the dogs in those underdogs in those matchups. I mean, there's no way we're going to be favored against them. Both teams. I mean, I think the Celtics have lost, I think, 4 of their last 9 or something like that recently. So they're kind of hovering, but they're still obviously an elite team. They're the defending champions, and the Thunder are by and far probably the best team in the league, maybe right behind the Cavs right now. But I think in those two matchups, we really get to see what the Wolves are going to be made of there. I mean, they have nothing to lose in those two games. I mean, they do have something where, yes, maybe they could get blown out. It'll be embarrassing. We're like, all right, well, we have no chance to beat the Thunder, let alone beating the Celtics if they, we make it all the way to the finals. But, I'm really intrigued because I think expectations will be low, and the Wolves tend to have a tendency, as they always have been, to play up to their competition. So, but yeah, so I'm really looking forward to those two games. But even after that, though, I'm looking a little bit further ahead. I think they have a relatively easy 2 weeks to start their 2025 after that. They're playing a lot of Wizards. They're playing some Pistons. They're playing the Pelicans. They're playing some teams there where, they'll be able to kind of, amp it back up. Now, I won't get into the latter half of January because it does get a little bit harder then, but this week will be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. So I think it's underdog time for the Wolves.
Yeah, I think the Wolves should just be playing for a split of these next two games.
Sure.
Both will be really tough. They currently sit, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 10th easiest, or the 10th, how do I phrase this? 9 teams have a harder schedule than them in the West. So they have the 10th hardest schedule. A large, like, the remaining schedule on average will be easier than the schedule they've played. A couple teams that like around them in the standings that have easier schedules. Phoenix, Denver, and Golden State all have easier schedules. Golden State being the only team that has a significantly easier schedule. They've already played Cleveland once. They've already played Cleveland twice and only have OKC and Boston one more time. So yeah, they've cleared out a lot of their tough games. But most teams have a much harder schedule. Memphis, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio. Those are teams all kind of right around in the ascendings. Memphis and Houston above them have a much harder schedule. So the Wolves, that'll be interesting to see when they do hit kind of an easier patch. Detroit always gives them problems. I think that's the game after the Boston one. So yeah, hopefully, like you said, the schedule lightens up at some point in the West. Maybe it just never does, but hopefully they can start rattling off wins when the schedule gives them an opportunity to do so.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I mean, I think there's going to be such a storyline that's going to continue following the Wolves of this Jekyll and Hyde situation that they've been, even between individual games where they look one way and play completely opposite way, within different quarters. So this will be interesting, what happens when they play these two tough teams and then an easier schedule later on.
Yeah, and it'll be good to see what they look like against the best team in the West, and certainly title favorites out there in the East. So it can go, if they play them hard, win one or both of them, we'll be feeling really good about ourselves. And if they get swamped by both of them, then we'll be right here covering it all for you guys. But that's where we're gonna wrap it up for the night. I have Andrew Dukowitz coming on later this week, and then Leo and I will be back a week from today in 2025 to break it all down. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, y'all. Get home. Drive safe.